What's up, everybody? Welcome to Jump Wave. Today, we're going to be doing a cover of the classic Never Gonna Give You Up by the legend Rick Astley on the Korg Volca Sample 2 using only the factory samples. This song is in the key of B-flat minor and it has a tempo of 113 beats per minute. Let's go ahead and set our tempo on the Volca. First thing we're going to do is clear our pattern by holding down Function and selecting Step 16, All. Now, let's set up our samples. On part 1, we're going to have sample 68, Tom Synth Low. On parts 2, 3, 4, and 5, we're going to have sample 102, Vintage Pad. On part 6, we're going to have sample 120, Dyna Strings. On part 7, we're going to have sample 72, Conga Low. On part 8, we're going to have sample 000, Kick Thick. On part 9, we're going to have sample 24, Snare Thick. And on part 10, we're going to have sample 54, O.Hat Loud. Now that we have our sample set up, let's begin programming our patterns. Let's start with that iconic tom fill that begins the song. So going over to part 1, let's go to step mode. And we're going to put a tom on steps 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Now if we hit play, we'll hear the sample triggered for each step we selected. But as you may have heard, it sounds a little robotic, so we need to sweeten it up a little bit. Luckily, the Volca Sample 2 allows us to program parameter changes per step. So to do that, you simply hold down a step and then turn any of these clear knobs in the gray box. So we want to add some slight changes to the speed and pitch of the sample that's going to simulate real drumming. So we want to alternate the EG intensity of the pitch on steps 7, 10, 12, 14, and 16. And we want to turn that intensity of the pitch up to 5. So what we'll do is we'll hold down the step and then we'll turn the knob to 5. And we'll do that for steps 7, 10, 12, 14, and 16. Next, we want to pitch down some of these steps to simulate multiple toms. So steps 12 and 13, we're going to hold down the steps and we're going to turn the speed knob now to -3. And on steps 14 and 15, we're going to turn it to -6. And then on step 16, we're going to turn it to -12. All right, let's listen to it. All right, cool. Sounds about right. Now let's add some reverb by holding down Function and selecting Reverb. And we're going to turn on the reverb for part 1. And let's set it at about 40. Now, one more thing is we want this to be the start of the song, and it's fine the way it is, but if you want to hear the toms as soon as you hit play, instead of waiting for it to play through the first 5 empty steps of the pattern, you can do that. So what we'll do is we'll hold down Function and we'll press the play button, and this brings up active step mode. And now we can turn off those first 5 steps so that when we hit play, we're going to hear those toms right on step 7 right off the bat. Cool. So let's save this. And we can save something by holding down Function and selecting Memory. And now it brings up all the possible places where we can save a pattern. So we're going to save this onto Memory 1. And we're also going to save it onto Memory 2. Now let's clear out this pattern because we don't want that tom fill here. So we'll go to Function, select step 16 all. That clears everything out. And we're going to start with our drums. So let's go over to part 8. And we're going to put a kick, go to step mode, and we're going to put a kick on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. Moving over to part 9 now, we're going to put a snare on steps 5 and 13. On to part 10, we're going to put a hat on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. And let's tighten that hat up a little bit, bring the decay down to about 30. Cool. Let's add a little bit more percussion now on step 7. So this is our conga part. We're going to put a conga hit on steps 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, and 15. And like our toms, we're going to make some parameter changes here to a couple of steps. So on steps 4, 10, and 15, we're going to turn the pitch up to 2. So steps 4, 10, and 15, we're just going to slightly turn that pitch up just a little bit to add a little bit of variation to it. Let's listen. And let's turn these down just a little bit. Turn the level of the congas down to about 90. All right, cool. Let's program our bass part now. So let's go over to part 1. And because we need all the space we can get for the song, we're going to change the tom sample from the toms on 68 now to sample 127. And that's going to be our bass part. So let's go to step mode. And we're going to turn on steps 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 11, 15, and 16. Now, if we hit play, we're going to hear our sample is triggered on each step, and but it's only playing the one note, and we want it to play different notes. So how do we do that? Well, we can change the note values per step by holding down the step. And then while continuing to hold down, we press and hold down function, take your finger off the step, and then turn the speed knob. And the speed knob now, instead of it being the speed knob, now its secondary function is note value. So it will adjust the pitch of a sample by semitones or note values. So our bass sample is turned to a C, so each note value is going to be one semitone. So starting at C, 1's going to be C sharp, 2 will be D, 3 will be D sharp, so on and so forth. And we can also go into the negative. So if C is our starting point, -1 will be B, -2 will be B flat, -3 will be A, so on and so forth. So this goes 24 note values in both directions, giving us a 4-octave range to play with. So let's change these notes. Starting on step 1, we want an E flat here. So we're going to press and hold down the step. While continuing to hold down the step, we're going to press and hold function, take our finger off the step. Now we see that it's blinking. And we're going to use our hand now to turn the speed knob to -9. And our screen is now telling us note value -9. All right. We're also going to do the same thing for steps 3 and 4. So pro tip here, you can hold down more than one step at a time. So you can hold down both of these steps and then press and hold down function. Take your finger off the steps and now turn the speed knob again to -9. And now those parameter changes are locked into both of those steps. Step 6 is going to be C0. Now, we don't have to do anything here, but I like to lock in my note value changes just in case the knob moves or something like that. So we got that. That's a C0 on step 6. Step 7 is going to be a B flat -2. So press and hold the step, then press and hold function, take your finger off the step, turn the note value to -2. Steps 9 and 11 are going to be A flat -4. And step 15 is going to be E flat -9 again. And step 16 is going to be A flat -4 again. All right, let's listen. All right, let's tighten it up a little bit. Bring that decay down to about 40. And let's bump the start time up to about 8 there. It gives us a stronger attack, more like that FM bass that's in the original. All right, let's talk chords now. So this song has a really nice chord progression, and the full progression for the intro and the chorus is E flat minor 7, A flat major, F minor, B flat minor. Now we have some nice samples of some minor chords on here, and we have some nice samples of some major chords on here. But if we use a major chord sample and we pitch it up and down, we won't be able to do minor chords and vice versa. So the only real solution here is not to use a sample of a chord, but to make a chord from some samples. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to take advantage of the Volca Sample's loop function to create some sustained tones, which we can then shape and stack on top of each other to create our chords. So we're going to go over to part 2. And now we have this sample of vintage pad. And we're going to turn on loop mode by holding down function and selecting step 11. Now the red light indicates that loop mode is on. And when we press play now, or when we press down on the sample now, we hear that it repeats. So the sample's looping now. So when the sample gets to the end of its length, it will go back to the beginning and play again. So we can adjust the length of the sample now. And you hear by making the length of the sample shorter, it repeats back to the beginning faster, 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 faster. If we make it really short, it will repeat fast enough to give us a sustained tone, kind of like an oscillator. And if we adjust the start point just right to 2, and if we put the length at 4, that's going to give us a C note. All right. Now that we have a C note, we can change our note values accordingly, and we can use some of these parameter changes here to shape that tone a little bit to make it sound the way we want to. So we're going to do this for each part here. Turn on the loop mode, set the length at 4, the start at 2. So do that for parts 2, 3, 4, and 5, the ones that have that sample 102 vintage pad. So we're going to just kind of touch the tone here a little bit, do a little high cut on each of these. And then set the decay of each one at about 90. All right, so now that we have our 4 strings basically, or 4 notes, 4 keys of the piano, now we can program each different part to play one note of the chord. So this section of the song is only going to play the first 2 chords. So the E flat minor 7 is going to be on step 1, and the A flat major is going to be on step 7. So starting on part 2, we're going to go to step mode, and we're going to put an E flat -9 on step 1. And on step 7, we're going to change this note to an A flat -4. Now moving over to part 3, we're going to have a B flat -2 on step 1. And on step 7, we're going to have a C0. And moving over to part 4, now we'll have a D flat +1 on step 1. And an E flat +3 on step 7. Over to part 5 now, we'll have a G flat +6 on step 1. And on step 7, we'll have A flat +8. All right, let's listen. Cool. Let's turn the level down a little bit on these. About 100. Great. So now we have one more part to do, and that's the strings melody on part 6. So let's go over to part 6. And we're going to have a C sharp +1 on step 1. And an E flat +3 on step 7. And an A flat +8 on step 13. All right, let's listen. Actually, we need to change this step 13. Instead of +8, it needs to be -4, A flat. All right, let's listen now. Yeah, it sounds better. All right, one more thing we're going to do is add some reverb here. Actually, let's turn the level down on that one too. So about 100. 105. We're going to add some reverb. So to do that, we hold down Function and hit Reverb. And we're just going to turn the reverb on for everything because this is the 80s, y'all. So let's listen. I think 40 sounds about good. So we're done with our first section now. So let's save it. We're going to hold down Function and select Memory. And we're going to save it onto Memory 2. We're going to save it onto Memory 3. We're going to save it onto Memory 4. We're going to save it onto Memory 6. And we're going to save it onto Memory 8. Great. Now let's load up back Memory 3. So we hold down Memory and we'll select M3 now. So the drums and percussion are the same here. We just need to change the notes on our melodic parts. So let's start with part 1, our bass line. Steps 1, 3, and 4 are going to be F -7. So we'll hold down steps 1, 3, and 4. Change this to F -7. Steps 6 and 7 are the same. We don't need to change them. Steps 11, 12, and 13. 11, 12, and 13 are going to be B flat -2. And step 15 is going to be C0. And step 16 is going to be B flat -2. Moving over to our chords now. Here in this section, we have an F minor chord on step 1 and B flat minor on step 7. So let's start with the root on step 1 of part 2. So we're going to hold down the step and we're going to change this to F -7 on step 1. And on step 7, we're going to have a B flat -14. Moving over to part 3, we'll have a C0 on step 1 and B flat -2 on step 7. Now moving over to part 4, we're going to have an F +5 on step 1 and a D flat +1 on step 7. We're also going to add a couple extra notes here that are going to follow the strings part. So on step 13, we're going to have A flat +8. And step 14, we're going to have G flat +6. And step 15, we'll have F +5. Now moving over to part 5, we'll have an A flat +8 on step 1. And an F +5 on step 7. We're also going to have some extra notes doubling the strings part here. These are going to be an octave higher. So on step 13, we're going to have A flat +20. On step 14, we're going to have G flat +18. And step 15, we'll have F +17. Next, we'll change our strings melody part on part 6. On step 1, we're going to have an E flat +3. On step 7, we'll have an F +5. On step 13, we'll have A flat +8. On step 14, we'll have G flat +6. And step 15, we'll have F +5. All right, cool. Let's listen. So that's supposed to be kind of like the horns part that plays at the end of that progression there. We don't have enough space for a horn sample, so we're just kind of making do with the best we have. But if you have a better idea for that part, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. All right, cool. Now let's save this onto memory 3. Let's also save it onto memory 5 and memory 7. Now let's load back up memory 5. Here, everything is basically the same as memory 3, except the strings melody is slightly different and there's a slight change to the chord rhythm. So let's go over to part 6. We're here now. On steps 1 and 5, we're going to have an A flat -4. And on steps 11 and 12, we're going to have A flat -16. On step 13, we're going to have B flat -14. On step 14, we'll have C sharp -11. And on step 15, we'll have B flat -14. Now we also need to change up the synth parts that are doubling up the strings on parts 4 and 5. So on to part 4, we're going to have A flat -16 on steps 11 and 12. On step 13, we'll have B flat -14. On step 14, we'll have C sharp -11. And on step 16, we'll have B flat -14. Now on to part 5, we'll have an A flat -4 on steps 11 and 12. And step 13, we'll have B flat -2. Step 14 will be C sharp +1. And step 15 will be B flat -2 again. Now, this is the part of the song where that second chord comes in right on the beat on step 5 instead of step 7. So we're going to go to part 2, and we're going to move our B flat -14 from step 7 to step 5. We're going to go over to part 3 now. We're going to move our B flat -2 from step 7 to step 5. Over to part 4, we're going to move our D flat +1 to step 5. And on part 5, we're going to move our F +5 to step 5. All right, let's listen to it now. All right, sounds good. Let's save it onto memory 5, and let's also save it onto memory 9. Now, memory 9 is essentially the same for the strings and synth lines, doubling it. So let's go over to part 6. And we just need to change these notes at the end here. We're going to have a D flat +1 on steps 9, 10, 13, 14, and 16. So D flat +1 on 9, 10, 13, 14, and 16. And we're going to do the same thing for parts 4 and 5 as well. So 9, 10, 13, 14, and 16, D +1. Actually, we'll do this one. We'll do this one an octave lower, so -11. D flat. All right, let's give it a listen. Let's tighten these strings parts up right here. Turn the decay down to about 60 for these. let's go ahead. Let's save that now onto memory 9. All right, now all that's left to do is listen to these patterns together. To do this, we'll use the pattern chaining feature of the Volca Sample. This is exclusive to the Volca Sample 2. Volca Sample 1 has song mode. Volca Sample 2 has pattern chaining. So if you press and hold down memory, as you normally would, to load up a pattern, now if you press the first pattern you want to chain together and continue to hold while pressing the last pattern you want to chain together, now patterns 1 through 9 will be chained together, so they'll play sequentially one after the other. And our screen is now telling us that patterns 1 through 9 are chained together. So when we hit play, we'll hear patterns 1 through 9 all play together. So let's listen. Now, this is essentially just the intro and chorus of the song. The verses have a different chord progression, and I'll cover those in an upcoming video for those who are interested. But that's it for today. You've officially been rickrolled on the Volca Sample 2 using only the factory samples. Let me know in the comments what you thought. What did I miss? Which samples would you have used instead? What other songs would you like to hear me cover on the Volca? And if you like this video, like this video. If you dig what I'm doing on this channel, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.